Hello, everyone. Welcome to this session of Tech Week, where we will discuss the Chula Vista Police Department's drone as first responder program. My name is Eric Blumendale. I'm the Director of Sales for Public Safety here at RMUS. I have to say I've been in this role for quite some time, and I don't think there's been a more exciting time to be in this industry in a role like mine, where finally it appears the regulations are catching up to the technology. It's exciting for first responders, it's exciting for me. I think the future is bright. A quick thank you to the audience for joining us today to learn about drone as first responder operations. This is a very relevant topic and one that continues to develop interest here in Canada, especially as there's rumors that the regulations are close to changing, allowing for things like BVLOS and remote operations. It's my pleasure to introduce our guest today, Captain Miriam Foxx of the Chula Vista Police Department. Thanks for helping us out with this, Captain Foxx. Good to see you again.
You're welcome. Good to see you.
For those who don't know, Miriam heads up the Drone as First Responder program in Chula Vista. They've been running this program since 2018, which is, in my opinion, fairly mind-blowing, as not many agencies are even doing that today, 5 years later. So what they've done is really remarkable, and excited to hear what Captain Foxx has to say about it. We're doing this format a little different. Captain Foxx has put together a very thorough presentation that covers many aspects of their drone program. Many of your questions are likely going to be answered in this presentation, but certainly if they're not, we'll address those at the end of the presentation. So with that, I will pass it over to you, Miriam. Thanks again for helping us.
You're welcome. Okay, let me get this started. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yep.
All right. Again, thank you for having me. So just going to give you a brief overview of our program here at Chula Vista Police Department, Drone as First Responder. So here's a brief video, and let me know if you can hear the audio.
Yep, got it.
So the Chula Vista Police Department flies drone as first responder. What that means for us and to the community is we use drones to fly to emergency calls for service.
Drones provide invaluable information to officers, sharing with them a visual into what is actually occurring. It makes all the difference to officers, dispatchers, and supervisors making split-second decisions.
It's important to have the overall information readily accessible. It gives the officers all the information they need to make the best possible decision.
I think it's a real benefit to be able to provide information to the officers. It helps keep the officers and the citizens safe.
And anytime an officer has the ability to get to the scene quicker with more information about what is actually occurring is critical and saves people's lives.
We can now have a better understanding where people are, and they give us a lot of visual information on what's going on there, if the subject is armed.
Think about how important it is to determine whether it's a pencil in someone's hand, a knife, or a cell phone. This is really about de-escalation at its best.
DFR is used as a de-escalation tool because it gives us another resource on our tool belt before we approach calls.
The fact that we get to know in advance if a subject has a weapon, it's a great tool used by our agency.
The community recognizes the value of the drone as first responder program as a way of reimagining police response and a better way to provide service to our community. And that's really kind of the idea going forward with this technology. And this is what's going to be going forward internationally as far as law enforcement use of drones.
Drone as a First Responder program is cutting edge, it's innovative, and it is the beginning of the new policing era.
We are saving lives and making a difference by changing the future of law enforcement with technology.
Okay, that's just a brief video overview of our program. Can you still hear me?
Yep.
Okay. All right. So if you don't know where Chula Vista is, here's a brief overview. Basically, we're located in this beautiful county of San Diego. southern portion of the county. We're the second largest city in San Diego County. Our southern edge of the city is only about 7 miles from the U.S.-Mexico border. Our population is about 285,000 and growing. We're actually growing east. Our city's going to be annexing more property east, so we're still actually growing. Approximately 52 square miles. We're at 281 sworn. We're actually going to be upping our sworn officers complement to about 283. We don't have a helicopter unit. The cost is just way too much for our agency, so this is why DFR was so important, so crucial for our organization. And also, we have our airspace is Gulf airspace, so it's pretty open. There's no just a little bit of our southern portion of our city. We have brownfield, a little bit of that is controlled, and then the naval station down here in IB, that's controlled, but that just touches a little bit of the southern edge of our city. So we use our drones in different ways. We call tactical our field and also used for tactical situations. So that's field deployment. We have about 25 pilots that are Part 107 certified. They actually take the smaller drones, the Advanced, the Enterprise, Minis, Avatas. They take them out in the field in the trunk of their cars, and they use them in conjunction with our DFR program. We also do indoor for searches, barricaded subjects, any type of situation where we need to use an indoor drone. We also do mapping, crime scene diagramming, and obviously nesting or our DFR program. So for how it all started, we always ask, how did this start? How did you guys get into DFR and how did everything align for you? So really, it was a lot of things happening at the same time. How it all started is there was a neighboring agency that had an officer-involved shooting, which resulted in the subject being killed by an officer. And what the call was, it was someone acting erratic, had something in their hand, they didn't know what it was. And when the officer by themselves gets there on the call, it was something shiny. The subject pointed at the officer as if it was a weapon, and it ended up being a vape device, a smoky device. And so our Chief Kenny came to our lieutenants at the time and said, hey, what could we do to avoid that situation? Because any law enforcement officer with our training and tactics, we're going to respond the same way. So how could we avoid having to go through that? That neighboring city had all kinds of protests going on because as a result of that shooting was an unarmed African-American male. And so it created a lot of challenges for that organization. At the same time, then President Trump tasked the FAA to integrate drones into the national airspace. A lot of businesses, Amazon, a lot of these businesses FedEx are looking to integrate drones into their business model. And so that started the UAS, the IPP, the Integration Pilot Program. City of San Diego was a part of that, and Chula Vista Police Department jumped in with the City of San Diego. So that's how we got in. Kind of was the timing, the planets were aligned, and we were able to get in. So that started in 2017. 2018, we put together, we were a part of and added into the IPP. And then towards the end of 2018, we actually started our program. So initially, our program started, we had one launch location, limited availability. We have pilots in command. You're probably familiar. For the FAA to give us beyond visual line of sight approval, they wanted us to have a pilot in command, which is a Part 107 certified pilot actually on our rooftop locations where we actually launch the drones from. Initially, we only had 1 mile line of sight. We use a program called CAPE. It's now been bought out by Motorola. So now it's Motorola CAPE. And that is the teleoperating software that we use to operate and fly the drones, in addition to live streaming the footage to our officers in the field. Back then we had to actually save and track our flight data manually. We would take a screenshot of the flight, insert that, and put the type of call, and then we would put that out on our website for the community to see. The program today, now we fly from 4 locations. We actually have 5 launch locations, but we're using 4 right now. We fly 7 days a week, 10 hours a day. In addition, we just started our nighttime DFR operations, so we're flying all the way up until midnight, Friday night, Saturday night, Sunday night. So we're in the hopes we're going to start off with the weekend evenings and then expand to weekdays for nighttime operations. Our pilots teleoperate, so we have a pilot in the DFR room that can launch any of the 4 drones, either singular or simultaneously, and be able to operate and also live stream. Flying Lion is the vendor that we partner with that provides our pilots in command or our PICs on our rooftops. We currently have 3 miles beyond visual line of sight waiver through the FAA. We also have 1 to 2 waiver, and what that is that if we launch from our police department, one of our launch locations, we launch a drone, we get overhead on the scene, battery is getting low, we're able to launch a second drone from the same location, get over to the same location of the incident, and bring back that first drone and do our battery change. So we have that authorization and waiver. And again, we video live stream through Motorola Cape, and our flight data is now managed through Air Data. So Air Data pulls the information from the Cape software, flight telemetry, flight path, and then that gets put into the system, and that is posted on our website so the community members can see what we're doing. We consider our program proactive. It's prepared. The drones are sitting and waiting at the launch pads, launch locations, waiting to fly, waiting for that call for service. They are operated, again, remotely by our teleoperator. It's very important. It's an experienced sworn officer that are DFR pilots. And we tell, what we realize that we find it was important to have someone that knows police tactics, that knows the city, that knows how to set up perimeters and police issues and concerns and knows law. So when our teleoperators overhead with a drone, they can basically become the incident commander and direct officers on the ground. So it's important to have an officer that's experienced. Flight safety, we ensure it by automation within the program. We geofence any type of high buildings or cranes or anything. If we have a lot of construction going on, our city's kind of growing and expanding. So we can geofence that so the drone won't go into those obstacles. We also, all of our officers in the field are visual observers trained. They're VO trained. So every 6 months, because we do shift change of patrol every 6 months, we send our DFR team in and we provide that refresher training to all our officers. So they are trained to call out obstacles to our UAS, our DFR pilot, when out in the field. The teleoperator can pick and choose which launch site is nearest to the incident. Again, that's the importance of having an experienced officer that knows the city and knows tactics. And then the teleoperator can assist with coordination via radio. So that officer is the incident commander, and they direct the officers as needed as such, provide updates, set up perimeters, whatever they need to do so we can rectify that situation. So these is a map and a location of our launch locations. So this first circle is the police department and the radius. The second circle is a hospital that we partner with, Bayview Hospital. This is our Sharp Hospital, and this is Ayers Hotel. The police department is the only city property owned that we launch from. The other 3 locations are not owned by the city, but all we have to do is what we've done is just have a hold harmless agreement with those other 3 locations, and they allow us to use a rooftop for free. So we're really lucky that we have such a great relationship with our community because it's not charging us anything, but obviously I'm sure they love having the police department responding to calls from their locations. This also, this is our coverage. This gives us about almost 100% coverage for the city as far as DFR is concerned. So a big thing is, and we talk about this, is that prior to actually putting a drone up in the sky, we actually had our program up a year before. And what we did in that year prior to was a lot of outreach. We met with our civic groups. We met with the community. We did public forums. We did outreach through the news media, through the media. And we also did city council meetings and met with our elected officials. We wanted the community to know what our plans were for our drone program, for our DFR program. And we wanted to also get feedback. And so the biggest thing for them was obviously privacy. And a lot of us in the department, we live in the city, so we get it, we understand. And so that's why we've tailored a lot of our program to be very outward facing. We want the community to know what we're doing. So transparency is very key and very important, and we agree with that. So this, with that transparency piece, this is a screenshot of our flights and what anyone in the community can go to the Chula Vista drone. If you Google just Chula Vista drone, you'll come up with the police department page. They can click on the flight data and they can see here's all of our flights that we've had. And since our program has been operational and through air data, and you can see the date, time, the incident type, incident call, the case number, and then what type of call it is. And so we do get regularly calls from citizens that said, "Hey, there's a drone in my, flying over my backyard." We'll actually verify it and say, well, actually, that's not us, because sometimes we do have civilians that are using drones, real estate companies, power companies. So we direct citizens to our website. They can see exactly what we're doing, and if we are over their area, we could say, hey, we're actually responding to a subject causing a disturbance, and it's actually down the block, and we're using our camera. And so they understand that, and if they ever have any question, we actually invite them in to see our actual program to help them understand that this is all for public safety, to make sure everyone's safe. In addition to the transparency, we put all of our flight missions on our website. So we're just over 14,000 missions since the beginning of the program. And the community can go on this. And this is basically a dashboard that is a Power BI dashboard that's fed in through our CAD, our computer-aided dispatch system. So it feeds into the Power BI dashboard, and this regularly updates. So the community can click on to see the different types of calls we're going to. And this is the dashboard. They can switch on the different years, or they can have them all highlighted. What's important, and we like to highlight this, is that with on this time of the dashboard, which was yesterday, 3,500 calls where we did not have to send a patrol unit. And most of our calls are two-person call, two patrol unit calls. So that's literally, 6,000 times. We didn't have 6,000 officers having to go to calls. That is huge, because those officers were able to be redirected to higher priority or something that's more important, and we were able to clear a call. So again, the transparency piece is really important, because we want our community to know what we're doing. We are able to, with the start of our program, we met priority one response times for the first time in 10 years. Having this program has been crucial, because we are getting an officer on that scene sooner and quicker, and being able to relay information to the officers on the ground. Hey, you actually have to go around, this intersection is blocked, or the suspect's actually not there, or the fight's dispersed, or whatever it is. But it's really been impactful for response times. So what the program does, it provides, again, real-time, valuable intel to responding first responders, including our fire department. Our fire department has access to our footage. They can call and ask for our drone if they need assistance. We do have sometimes some brush fires in the area. We're in Southern California, and so we'll get overhead. We'll switch to thermal. They can see the hot spots, and so it's a great tool for them, and something that we readily share with our fire department. We consider this a huge de-escalation tool. If we know what's going on prior to our officers getting there, and we can downgrade what we need to do or what we're going to have to do, why wouldn't we do it? So we consider this a huge de-escalation tool. It confirms, it'll dispel or expand on the information that we're receiving over the phone or in 911. We can reallocate, like I mentioned before, we can reallocate resources if we don't need them on a call, or if we need additional resources. It gives our officers a bird's eye view. It gives our supervisors, our command staff, our chief, we all can see it from our desktops or from our mobile devices. We can watch the footage. It makes our first responders, our community safer, and even the subjects we contact safer. What we don't do random surveillance. We don't just launch the drone and fly until the batteries get low and return back. We only respond to calls for service. And that's important. We know that was a huge concern for our community, and it's a huge concern for us. So we only respond to calls for service. We won't weaponize our drones. We're not using them in conjunction with automated license plate readers. That's a big deal for the community in our area. We're so close to the border, and there's concerns about immigration and local law enforcement. We don't do immigration enforcement. We don't do facial recognition. Southern California, down in this county, there's a little bit of a moratorium on facial recognition for the entire county, and so we're not using it in that aspect. We don't want to put the community at risk, and it's cost effective. We think we have Sango PD and Sango Sheriffs have great helicopter programs, and they're very helpful, and they do provide support. But it's a very costly program to have. So having a drone program, it's a lot cheaper. Also, we this is a huge concern in our areas about, are we sharing information with foreign entities and foreign countries? And our Motorola Cape app actually bypasses the native DJI application. And it's through Amazon Web Services, so it's all secure. So that information is not being shared. In conjunction with our DFR program, we are also using a software called Live 911. Live 911 basically a 911 call comes into dispatch and it splits off. It goes into dispatch and it also goes into the software, web-based software program where the officers can hear the 911 call. And why this is important is that the officers can hear the inflection in the person's voice. We can hear additional information. Our dispatchers are fantastic, but they may miss some things that maybe a law enforcement ear would catch. And so now our officers are hearing the information. In addition, our officers are able to see on the web-based program, they could see where the caller is within 2 feet. It's the same technology as they would use as what Uber or Lyft uses. So we could see where the caller is, and we could see and you can hear and what's going on. And so maybe, in situations with some other agencies where there's been an active shooter and they weren't sure, well, if a caller's calling in and you can hear the shots in the background, then there's no question of an active shooter. This really has been helpful. We had a recent example of a person called in 911. It was a mother, her child fell in the pool. The dispatcher call taker was getting the information, getting ready to dispatch it out. The officer had Live 911 on, saw that he was nearby, actually got out, got to the pool, performed CPR, saved the child. So usually there's a little bit more of a time gap trying to get the information, get it typed up, get it dispatched. So Live 911 is saving lives by cutting that time out and letting the officers hear and see what's going on. It's also helped with the communication between our officers and dispatchers, because our officers always have these impressions, dispatch not asking this information, not asking that. Now we're hearing the dispatcher ask 10 times, what direction was the person going? What were they wearing? And the frustration that the dispatchers go through. So that's an added benefit that we didn't even realize. So here's a video of one of our hits. So at this point, you see that it's an actual cigarette lighter. Um, traditional law enforcement response, we would have responded so much different. Now, this was related to officers. They still approach with caution, but it does change our approach. And so who knows what could have happened if the subject turned and they saw what looked like a gun. I mean, what could have happened? And so it could have ended very differently. And that's why we, in conjunction with Live 911, hearing the call come in, the pilot was able to, our DFR pilot launched within seconds to get to this call and to determine what we had. I got a couple more videos, so some examples. So this video, I'll just let you hear. So this was a call of a subject that was passed out in a vehicle. The officers were dispatched. The officers were dispatched to the area. What you can't hear is the codes that the dispatcher was saying, but the vehicle comes back stolen based on the plate that the witnesses gave us. So and this video is actually 20 minutes long, but we trimmed it down. So our DFR pilot is flying around trying to find the vehicle. It's a silver vehicle, our silver white vehicle, person passed out. So pilot's flying around trying to look through the vehicles, and you'll see in a minute here, he will locate the vehicle and then direct ground units.
Okay, do you confirm if that's a Blue Phillips program? Okay, I'll be on the North 4th and 54 right now. For myself and 24 in the front broadband now.
So, traditionally you get these calls, you'll be driving around forever, wouldn't be able to find the subject. And it's also a stolen vehicle.
Online with the RP is no longer in the area.
Please westbound. Go towards Palomar in the parking lot. About one or two aisles in front of the Dairy Queen.
So you see the subject's passed out. Our pilot locates it, notifies the officers. I don't know if you noticed, but there's no steering wheel. The owner of this vehicle, their vehicle had been stolen before, and so they took off the steering wheel with the hopes of it not being stolen. Well, it didn't really help. The vehicle was still stolen again. So the driver wakes up.
321. Go ahead and head in. I'm behind you.
And now the chase is on. And he has no idea that police are overhead watching and relaying the information. And as the officers are approaching, he's going to then start running.
Other way, guys. Other way. Behind you.
Running across the street.
Now, with traffic patterns, with all the cars, we wouldn't necessarily catch him. At this point, he throws something in the dumpster. The officers don't have a need to rush in because they have the overhead footage. And they're like, there's no rush. There's no rush. We see what he's doing.
He's running again now. At the door, the one in businesses. I'm trying to get that in.
We're coming out on my side.
So our DFR pilot's narrating what he's saying.
Running across the street.
And then at the end, so the subject, when he threw the dumpster was, when we went back to the dumpster, was actually a handgun, and he also hid his drugs in the back. So this information, we'd have never gotten it, and we would have never known had we not had the pilot overhead. So one more video. So this video doesn't have any sound. This is our marina area of the city. This was a call of a subject with a gun in a red vehicle. This is a pretty busy area. It's a nice scenic area. People come here during lunch. It was the middle of the day. We got lucky because it was like only one red vehicle. our pilot had just launched from the police department and was zooming in. This is also a long video. The pilot actually told the officers to hold off, don't go in directly. Let me get let me get the license plate. Let me get more information before you go in. So as the pilot was zooming in, you could see the person there and what she's doing with what looks like a handgun. We had multiple 911 calls for this person, this call. So and we would never have seen this had we not had DFR. So our DFR pilot's giving the information, what she's wearing, what kind of vehicle, where she's sitting in the vehicle. Now the officers have more time to make a better informed decision, come up with a better plan, make sure it's coordinated, and we know exactly where we're going. There's no surprise as to which vehicle it is and where the person's sitting, and that it looked like they had a gun. So you'll see our officers come in, and we begin the felony hot stop. So we begin the felony hot stop. We get all the occupants out. So had we come in traditionally, the female has the gun. She turns towards the officers. Could have ended very differently. We get everyone out safely. We find the weapon. It actually ends up being a BB gun. It wasn't even real. So this could have ended very differently. It could have ended very differently based on our tactics and training, and we all know. And so having that information crucial gives us a little bit more time to make a better informed plan and not be rushed into having to do things that we don't want our officers to necessarily have to do unless it's necessary, absolutely necessary. So again, we consider this a huge de-escalation tool, and we think it's important that we are transparent with our community, and we hone in the fact that this is making everyone safer. Our officers are safer, our community is safer, and the subjects and individuals that we're contacting safer. Let's see if this will play. So our chief just got her Part 107. So we added this video into our little our PowerPoint because we were pretty proud of our chief who got her Part 107. If anyone who's done the training here in the U.S., it's a lot of studying and it's not normal police work type stuff. So we're pretty proud that our chief got her Part 107.
Absolutely, yeah.
So that's it for my presentation. Here's my contact information. I will stop sharing and see if there's any questions.
Thank you so much. That was wonderful. I have to thank you again, honestly, for hosting RMUS and a few of our customers down in Chula a couple months ago. That was really well done. Our customers are still talking about it. The only negative about that trip was the weather. It was probably the coldest it's been in 3 years in San Diego, but we still really enjoyed it. You guys were very hospitable and really, it was a wonderful trip. So thank you for that. I guess, audience, if you have any questions, now would be a great time to put those in the chat. We'll see if we can get those answered for you. In the meantime, I do have one for you, Captain Fox. I noticed a lot of the videos that you showed were flying at pretty high elevation. I assume there's a number of reasons for that. The main reason is you can because the zoom capabilities of the H20T that you're using on the M300. But are there other reasons you're flying at such a high altitude?
Yeah, so our city is just not flat. We have different topography. So the further east and the further south, the land actually shifts. It actually goes higher in elevation. So we usually launch our flight elevations about 280 to 300. And obviously we can go up to 400 feet. So, and we also have some parts of our city that are older parts. We have power lines. And so we want to make sure we are well above any obstructions such as power lines. And those are actually geo-fenced out, so our drone won't go into them, but we want to make sure we're well above that.
Absolutely. Okay, great. First question we have from the audience is, are your drones all M300s?
Our DFR fleet are M300s. For the field deployment, we have everything from a Mini 2, Mavic Enterprise, Advanced. We just got a couple of the new Avadas, which are fantastic. So for the field deployment, we have pretty much everything. We also have Brink lemurs. But for DFR, we have the M300s. We would love to go to the M30s. We're waiting for the drone in the box solution to kind of get up to date from what we understand. For the M30, you have to, when you buy it with the box, you have to buy it with the box together. You can't not work with the box. And also it's like like drop a pin, go to a location, it'll hover. We like to be able to manually operate the drone as we need, so the officers can get into areas that they need to go to. So we're waiting for that to update.
Okay, well, that actually ties into the next question from Kevin. Are you considering moving to drone in the box? I think you just answered that. And it sounds to me like you've sort of determined that the DJI box is the path forward for your agency.
Well, that's one of the few options that probably is affordable. We've seen a lot of drone in the box solutions here made in the U.S., but the cost, they're like $150,000 each. Great systems, but we just can't afford that cost for 4 or 5 locations. Our future goal, our vision, would love to put a drone in the box at every fire station in the city that could be integrated with our CAD system. So their priority one call comes in, the drone is in the box, nice, safe and snug, and all of a sudden it wakes up. My pilot puts down their donut and goes, okay, I'm going to fly the drone. And still having the DFR pilot manipulating and flying the drone and relaying information, that's important. But having the drone in the box at every fire station, you have the fire stations are placed strategically based on calls for service. So you wouldn't even have to fly as far because you have more fire stations in the city. So that would be our future goal.
Yeah, and they're very close. They work very closely with the police already. So that's there's a lot of synergy with working with the fire department.
That's right.
So
and it's city property, so you wouldn't.
Yeah, you don't have to pay more, right? Exactly. Jeff has a question about ongoing initial and ongoing training for, I assume, your DFR pilots.
Right. So
Can
all
you
of our
speak to that a
pilots.
bit?
Yeah. So we have collateral duty pilots, or we have 25 collateral duty pilots. They also train as DFR because if a DFR pilot takes vacation, they plug in. So we all get trained. So everyone from my chief on down, myself, we're all Part 107 trained. We go to a training course that's in the LA area. Everyone gets Part 107 trained. We give our pilots 2 attempts to pass the test. They don't pass the second time, they're off the team. And then we do monthly 8-hour training in addition to the initial training. So every month the whole team meets for 8 hours. And like for Monday was our last training, and we have a lot of new construction. We actually partnered with new home builders, and they let us use a home that was almost done, and we were using some of our Avadas and our Advanced to do some interior searches. So every month we do 8 hours of training for the entire team.
Very good. Okay, great. Another question, and one that I was thinking of as well. I do a lot of sales throughout Canada and in the US, and I know there's a really strong push, especially in the States, to sort of ban, I wouldn't say DJI specifically, but Chinese platforms from law enforcement and other government entities. Are you getting pressure in California from the government to switch over to a blue drone or NDAA compliant drone?
Yes, we are starting to see that here. As you know, Florida had that happen, and it's a big problem because we're not saying that, and we're not trying to put down any other country, and we understand the concerns about privacy and intelligence being shared. And for us, it's like, we have someone. For us, when it comes to foreign entities, um, DJI drones are the best. They're the most affordable. We can get multiple drones for the price of an American-made version for one. So we are seeing that pressure. We actually got some good news yesterday. There was some California state legislation that was trying to force us into a blue drone list only for use for public agencies, and that bill died yesterday. So for this year, we're safe, but we know it's probably going to come back next year. This is an ongoing issue. We would love to use an American-made company. However, it's so expensive to make what DJI
Yeah.
makes here in the U.S. So it's
Understood. Yeah, I
yeah.
have a lot of customers under the same pressure, and there's a lot of frustration out there, but totally understand. I guess the last question, and this might be sort of a tough one to answer, but we brought our customers from Canada to see you, and after talking with them, they all seem to have the same concern. I think Chula was very lucky with having a chief that was very forward thinking and proactive with drone technology from day one, right? There wasn't even really a second guess on her part. This was sort of a priority from day one, and that helped you spin this program up really, really quickly. Some of these other agencies, in the US and in Canada, might not have that same support from command. What sort of advice would you give them, as they're looking at DFR operations?
That's a great question. So our chief has always been supportive, but I think initially she was a little skeptical, but supportive because she's always trying to push us to think outside the box because to do more with less, and a lot of agencies are doing more with less. There was early on we had a success video that she saw. It was a domestic violence call of a female who was chasing down her boyfriend who's on a motorcycle and kept trying to ram him. We showed the chief that video, and she was sold completely on it. Like I said, she's always been supportive, but at first she was like, okay, what is this? What are these drones thing? What do you guys want to do with drone? Okay, go ahead and try it. But when she saw that, so I think showing success stories, so having a field deployment program first, do the crawl, walk, run, have field deployment where you could show your department head, hey, we found this subject that was hiding in the crawl space, and we didn't have to put any officers at risk. We didn't have to put our K9 in a situation where, putting them at risk. And showing them the success stories is really what's going to help your department head really get on board, and also with the community when they go to sell it to the community and elected officials, showing the success stories. So starting off with a smaller field deployment and being able to then transition that.
Yeah, very good advice. Thank you for that. Well, I think that's all we have for questions, and we're about at time. So thanks again, Captain Foxx. Really appreciate your time. You've been very generous with us, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank
For
you
the
for
audience, we do have a few more sessions tomorrow and Friday, so I think we're showing that on the screen. If you can attend any of those, please do. We'd love to have you. Thanks again, Captain Foxx.
Thank you. Bye.
Have a great day.
You too.